graphic, we heard yesterday or 2 days ago, oh my God, the SEC is going to have their own national championship. No, they're not. I didn't think most SEC fans realize that's not happening. It doesn't mean we have to recognize it, even though they have been a part of what has been, like every year, somebody in the SEC playing for it or winning it, right? On occasion, there's been an exception. So here's a graphic from 2014 to 2021. And this is everybody from the SEC and what their semifinals, their four, who they would have been since 14, based on the college football rankings when it all began in 2014. Alabama was a part of it, would be a part of it 7 times. Okay, that seemed like that's about normal. Georgia 6 times, a little bit more than normal, even though they've been a part of the conversation, defending national champions. Florida and LSU 5. I mean, LSU can see them. Bam, 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 bam. 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row. No, 4 years in a row. Also, Auburn and Ole Miss 3 times, including Ole Miss last year, who lost to Baylor in the Sugar Bowl. And then Arkansas, A&M, and Mississippi State 1 time.
Good Lord. A&M would just been 1 playoff?
Yeah, and it would have been 2 years ago when they had a pretty good argument in the COVID year of 2020. Ole Miss actually, again, would be in it 3 different times. What that shows is who would have been in it had they had their own national title or they had expanded their conference to semifinals and rather just championship game. That is never, I'm not going to say ever, never, never, ever, but that's not going to happen. Not enough people in America, no matter how great that conference is and about to be even maybe better, no matter how dominant they've been, no matter the money they're making, the power they have, will they ever have just their champion as the national champion in college football?
No, because it wouldn't be undisputed, and it would be the national champion of that league, but not the national champ. How can it be a national champion when it's only a quarter of the country? I mean,
it can't.
You know, Tony Altomore sent me a text yesterday, and he brought this up, and I've been thinking about it all night. If the SEC ever did that, and the Big Ten, like what they'd find out is that their fan bases, they need to learn the Longhorn Network lesson. Your fan bases are a lot more regional than you think. You think you're a big deal and you think people are talking about you, but if it was just the SEC and that was the television contract, I think ESPN would find out that, like, well, the Pac-12 fans aren't going to watch if they have nothing to do with this ultimately down the line. No. If you're an Oregon fan, you might watch like, say you're an Oregon fan. Oregon's really good.
Yep.
You might watch some SEC games because
they're going to maybe play somebody.
But you may going to play somebody and like, ooh, I could see us playing Georgia down the line. I want to watch that. But if you have no chance of playing them ever, are you going to turn it on?
No. I love college football. I don't quite follow it the same, but I love it. I don't know if anyone loves it more than the two of you, and of course the people in this room as well, and you on the who are watching us or listening to us. But I would not. That doesn't mean I wouldn't watch the game. That doesn't mean I wouldn't want to watch Alabama, Georgia, LSU, whoever it is, A&M, whoever's in the game. I love college football. But it would be no different than just having a mega conference champion. It would not be in any way a national title to at least claim.
Only way you could claim it to be a national championship would be if you somehow had a league much bigger than the 16 you're planning on, and somehow that included Southern Cal and Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State, and you created the super-duper conference. Then you could at least make some claim about a national champion. But when everybody's residing in the same part of the country, that is not a national champion. That is the SEC champion. That's what that is, and nothing else, no matter what they would want to call it or whatever. So, I mean, again, I think Greg Sankey said what he said. It raised alarms in college football world talking about that, and certainly created a ton of debate. I think it could make money. I think it could be successful. I mean, it's still the SEC, and they still will have their fans, but you're right. There would be a lot of national interest on the outside that would certainly dwindle. I mean, I would watch, but I wouldn't care nearly as much or pay nearly as much of attention to it in comparison to, the other league that would also be going on, the NCAA or whatever that would be, with the rest of the country all involved. So it's a neat theory. I mean, it's a neat idea in theory, but I think it's, a warning shot, and I think it's a preemptive move on the part of the SEC to let everybody know what's what and what the lay of the land is, and hey, we could do this if we really wanted to, or we can at least threaten to do it, and whatever the warning shot is for, then pay attention to that and heed that, because everybody needs each other. They just need everybody less than anybody else does. And so, yeah, they're the only one that could threaten to do that, because the Big Ten by themselves, I mean, no, that's not going to work. The Pac-12 by themselves, that's not going to work. And the SEC by themselves, I think it could float, but it would not be you know, the top league, the NFL, if you will, because I just think there's too many parts missing.
Markel, ESPN gave Texas the channel. ESPN wants Texas to be so good. Look at all the posts when we talk about him here. He's also a UT fan. He also mentioned if ESPN felt there was a better team, why not give it to them? They didn't give it to UT. They were coming off that loss to Alabama in the national championship game. That was the loss to Colt McCoy game. That was a part of the Big 12 and ESPN trying to keep Texas inside the conference. That was to appease them. They have lost their ass since that day, since day one. And Texas has not. It's a great deal for UT. Their own network, are you kidding me? It's been fantastic. But has it made them 1 ounce better in any sport since it was developed?
No, not a single bit. I mean, maybe they got more track athletes as a result of Longhorn Network programming, but in terms of football and basketball, they're no different than they were. Yeah. I mean, they're just richer, and they were already the richest pretty much to begin with, so they're richer by that much more at this point. But outside of that, I don't think it's really had much of an effect at all.
Texas got $20 million a year, whether they were good or not.
I think it was close to 15.
Between 15 and 20, I think escalating based on inflation and things like that. But so between $15 and $20 million a year. They didn't have to be good. The ratings didn't have to be good.
Nope.
Here's the thing. The carriage of that channel didn't have to be good.
They
were getting it if it was on one cable provider or all of the cable providers. They were going to get the same. Everyone would take that deal. I mean, it was such a great, unbelievable deal.
It's not UT's fault.
Yeah.
It's not like they didn't have why would you ever say no, whether you're Texas or Ohio State or USC or Florida? You would take that deal if you're a conference or you could do it.
What's the premise of that comment, though? Like, what were we talking about that led to that?
No, we were just talking.
Okay.
This is on this.
It was just kind of random. Yeah. That's why I was wondering. But, yeah, I mean, they're about one of the only schools that could do that. I mean, I know BYU has their own network, but that's not so much about just simply athletics. It is that they have their own niche, obviously, carved out. They're unique in that way. I mean, Notre Dame could probably do it. And there's not too many others. I mean, Texas is big enough and strong enough to be able to do it, but I don't think it's really made much of a dent. I think, you know, if it wasn't forced on most people's cable packages, most people wouldn't even have it in the state of Texas, but we all just had it, and you know what? It was a thing that I just flipped on by pretty much 99.999% of the time, 100% of the time outside of football season.
It took forever to get on, to get it into kind of like some of the regional networks like Bally Sports and
they made a good money. They made a good amount of money off that. I mean, that was the benefit of it.
Notre Dame has basically their own network. It's called NBC, but not really like you're talking about with that. But they are an NBC.
But yeah, who else would there be? I mean, BYU's got the Mormon aspect, so that's what builds in and really helps that audience. Notre Dame, I see could do that. Obviously, Texas has done it. But outside of that, I think it's kind of few and far between. Like, I don't think an Alabama network would go as well as people probably think. You know, they get big TV ratings, but an actual network. So, yeah, kudos to Texas for being one of the brands that could pull it off. But even then, it was not successful in the way that you would think of outside of just the money figure. But in that way, it was a massive success.
Here are those of you, I'm going to name you very quickly.